Glad to see you. Come on in. Grab a chair and we'll begin. Once upon a time in Ireland, a long, long time ago, there was a family who lived in a little cottage. They were very poor, but they were good people. They were hard workers. Well, they were hard workers, but the father, Dennis O'Shea, really didn't like to work. He was one of those people that liked to lay in bed and watch the world go by, and he did what he needed to do, but he never was looking for more work than he had. His wife Molly was always reminding him that he was setting an example for the children and he should be more mindful of that. But Dennis was a good guy and he took care of his family, so it was one of the few faults that he had that it could be overlooked. One night it was a terrible storm outside. The wind was pounding against the doors, the rain was coming down hard, and the family was sitting around waiting for their potatoes to boil. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. They looked at each other, and Dennis got up and opened the door. Standing there was a little old woman, a little dirty, wearing rags, clearly didn't have very much money, and she looked at him and she said, "Please, sir, it's a terrible night outside. Please give me some shelter. I haven't eaten anything all day. I just need to come and get warm." So Dennis, being the good guy that he was, let her in, gave her his very own stool at the table, and sat her down. Molly brought the potatoes to the table and said, "Please, help yourself." And the woman did. She helped herself, and she helped herself, and she helped herself. And although there weren't many potatoes to begin with, she kept helping herself. Molly and Dennis didn't say a word. They figured she needed it more than they did. The children sat and watched, and their eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger as she kept eating and eating. How could one tiny person eat that much? She sat back and sighed, and all of a sudden she jumped up and spun around 3 times. Standing in front of them was no longer a little old woman, but a beautiful fairy in a gold gown, glimmering all over the place. "You have been most kind to me, and I really want to reward your kindness. I will grant you the next wish that is wished aloud in this house." And with that, poof, she disappeared up the chimney. Well, to a family as poor as the O'Sheas, this was a miracle, and they sat and they thought, what should we wish for? The children, of course, wanted dolls and sweeties and toys, and Molly said that they should ask for £100, no less. Dennis had so many things he would wish for that he couldn't think of a single thing. But Molly said, "It's okay. Tomorrow is Sunday, and we have all day to decide before we say our wish aloud." Dennis thought, oh yes, Sunday. Sunday was his favorite day because it was the one day he didn't have to get up and go to work. And as he leaned back in his chair, his belly still empty, he said, "You're right. Sunday. I wish we had a week of Sundays." Well, as soon as the words were out of his mouth, he realized what he had done. Molly realized what he had done and cuffed him upside the head and said, "What are you doing? If I'd known you were going to waste the wish, I would have wished that you had some more sense." Well, Dennis felt pretty sheepish in the beginning, but the more he thought about it, the more he actually liked his wish. It'd be nice to have a whole week of Sundays to sit and do nothing. So that night they went to bed and woke up, and the next day was a beautiful sunny day. Dennis lay in his bed and he heard the church bells ringing, but he stayed in his bed, just lying straight out while Molly and the children went to church. When they came home, Molly popped the dinner in the oven, and he could smell the roast pork coming out of the oven, and the baked potatoes, and the meats, and all the fixings. He could smell the gravy, and he got up out of his bed to eat his meal. And it was a delicious Sunday dinner, and they all ate well, considering they were still hungry from sharing their food the day before. Dennis, his belly full, put his best suit on and went and sat outside in the yard and thought life was good. The next morning, same thing. It's a beautiful sunny day, and it was Sunday. Children and Molly got up and went to church, and Dennis lay in his bed and did nothing. And he heard them come home, but he didn't smell the good smells of Sunday dinner cooking. So he went down, and Molly was dishing up the little bits left off the pork roast from the night before, and a few scraps of potatoes. And Dennis said, "What is this? Where's our Sunday dinner?" And Molly said, "Well, this is what we have." And she fed them, and they weren't as full as the night before, but they were still pretty well fed. And Dennis again sat out in his yard and enjoyed life. The next morning, the third Sunday in a row, they got up and Dennis went down for his dinner, and it was bacon and potatoes. And he said, "Molly, what is this? This is not a Sunday dinner. How can a man be expected to eat a Sunday dinner of bacon and potatoes?" And Molly said, "What do you expect me to do? There are no shops open. I cannot get another roast that we normally have on Sundays. This is what we have, and this is what it will be." Well, Dennis wasn't very happy, but he was still kind of pleased to not have to do any work. So he lazed around a little bit more and went to bed early, got up late the next day. And the next day for dinner, all there was stale old bread and a lump of moldy cheese. Dennis said, "This just will not do. I'm going to go dig some potatoes so that we can at least have some nice fresh potatoes for dinner." And Molly said, "You can't be digging potatoes on a Sunday. It's Sunday. What will the neighbors think? You cannot be doing that." And Dennis, in his heart of hearts, was really feeling kind of funny because he was actually longing for that feeling of a spade in his hand. But he knew she was right. It just wasn't done. He could not go out and dig up potatoes on a Sunday. So they ate the moldy cheese and the stale bread and went to bed. The fifth day they got up, and Dennis, by this time, his blankets weren't feeling so soft and comfortable, and they were kind of scratchy and nettly, and he was just tired of laying in his bed, and his thoughts started to wander toward going to work. And the children were miserable. All they had to do was fight with each other, and Dennis would yell at them, "What is the matter with you?" And Molly would say, "What do you expect? All they can do is wear their Sunday clothes. They can't play any real games in case they wreck them. They can't go do any work. They're hungry. What do you want them to do?" So Dennis understood that, yes, this was a consequence of a week of Sundays, but he could still live with it because, work. The next day, Dennis got up and he decided he would go to church too, because he was pretty tired of doing absolutely nothing. But going to church really wasn't very much better, because there the pastor was not happy. 2 sermons a day, 7 days in a row. That's 14 sermons. I have to think up, I have to write, I have to deliver. Do you know how much work that is? And Dennis realized another consequence. The pastor wasn't happy, and neither were some of the people in the congregation. The women were looking at Dennis and muttering about the laundry they would have to do once Monday came. And the men were grumbling about crops in the field and not being able to touch them all week. So Dennis went home, went to bed, hungry. The next day he got up, and it was the last Sunday, and every single hour felt like a whole day. The day stretched out, and Dennis just could not wait for the Sundays to be over. He wanted to get back to work. He wanted to have a full belly. He wanted his children to be happy. He kept pacing around, and Molly finally said, "What's wrong with you?" And Dennis said, "I just cannot wait for the sun to go down." And Molly said, "Well, don't you know that tomorrow will be Monday?" And Dennis said, "Well, yes, I know that. I cannot wait for it to be Monday." And Molly said, "Are you meaning to tell me that you wouldn't wish for another week of Sundays if you were granted another wish?" And Dennis said, "Oh, no, I have learned. There is no enjoying a Sunday if you haven't done a 6 days of work before that." And Molly said, "Thank goodness you have finally learned. Too bad it had to take a fairy wish to get you to learn, but at least you have." The next day, the sun rose. It was Monday. Dennis sprang from bed and happily grabbed his spade and went to work. So, I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.